In 2009, the disappearance of 17-year-old Brittanee Drexel during her spring break trip to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, left her family in anguish, wondering about her fate for over a decade. Despite a lengthy search and numerous unanswered questions, the case remained unsolved. However, a startling revelation in May 2022 brought new information to light, leading to the conviction of a suspect and a sense of closure for Brittanee's grieving family. Hi, and welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing, as it helps us motivate to create more intriguing content for you. Let's have a look at the case of Brittanee Drexel. Brittanee Drexel was born on November 7, 1991, in Rochester, New York. She was born out of wedlock to Dawn Drexel and John Keoghala. Dawn later married Chad Drexel, who raised Brittanee as his own. Brittanee was born with a special condition in her right eye called persistent hyperplastic primary vitreous. This condition made her early years tough because her eye didn't develop properly. She had to go through many medical procedures, but she remained blind in that eye. Even though she had this challenge, Brittanee had unique-looking eyes because she wore contact lenses. She didn't let her eye condition stop her from doing well in high school. She did great in soccer and had big dreams of becoming a cosmetologist someday. Drexel was looking forward to spending spring break at the beach in April 2009 with her friends and boyfriend. They were traveling more than 800 miles to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Her mother, however, objected because she was concerned that something terrible would occur because she did not know the children her daughter would be hanging out with so far away without adult supervision. Brittanee came up with a strategy that would let her hang out with her pals and enjoy her adolescence after fighting with her mother for a few days. Brittanee asked her mother on April 22, 2009, whether she could spend a few days away from home at a friend's place. Dawn concurred, but Brittanee left without telling her parents that day for South Carolina with her pals. Only on April 25th, 3 days later, Brittanee gave her mother a call to let her know she was at the beach. Dawn believed that she meant the beach in Lake Ontario, which is located not far from Rochester, New York, about 35 miles away. Actually, Brittanee was at the Myrtle Beach Bar Harbor Hotel. On April 25, 2009, at 8:00 p.m., Brittanee and her companions walked along South Ocean Boulevard to visit a longtime friend who was staying at the Blue Water Resort after leaving the Bar Harbor Hotel. Around 8:45 p.m., the security cameras captured her arriving at the hotel wearing beachwear. The identical camera captures her disappearing from view. John Greco, Brittanee's boyfriend, was texting her because he could not make the vacation due to work. Her communications ceased at about 9:15 p.m., and when she refused to pick up the phone, John started to worry. When he got in touch with her Myrtle Beach acquaintances, neither of them had seen her nor knew what had occurred. John tried calling Dawn, Brittanee's mother, as a last resort, not realizing her daughter had departed without her consent. In an attempt to get the authorities in South Carolina informed, Dawn got in touch with the Rochester police. On April 26, the police started searching for Brittanee the next morning. They located her pals using the security footage they had taken from the Blue Water Resort. Peter Brazowitz, a 20-year-old nightclub producer, was the last person to report seeing Brittanee. From Rochester, New York, the two of them had previously known one another. However, the police did not have a person of interest despite seeing the video and talking to Brittanee's pals. Peter is still the only one who has seen Brittanee alive. Brittanee's parents kept money in her bank account for years in the hopes of seeing some movement, but they never did. The cops discovered Brittanee's cell phone and purse were missing after searching her room. This implied that she might have had them on her person when she vanished. After following the network pings from her phone, they were able to locate the Georgetown-Charleston County border, which is located roughly 50 to 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach. It was until that morning when the pings stopped. The police looked for a body along U.S. Route 17 for 11 days, but they were unable to locate one. Speaking with Peter Brazowitz, Brittanee's last known visitor, following her abduction, Brittanee's parents made an appearance on Dr. Phil, but they had no fresh information. The media and the parents' outrage fell primarily on Peter. Many thought that her absence was due to him, a 20-year-old who was hanging out with a child. The parents of Peter and Brittanee appeared on the Dr. Phil show on May 11th. When Dawn questioned Peter about his awareness of the hazardous environment at Myrtle Beach, the argument between Brittanee's parents and Peter Brazowitz centered on the harm their remarks had done to his image. They said he ought to have shown more maturity, taken action, and assisted Brittanee since he knew she was in a risky situation. However, they also asserted that because she was a minor, he should not have interacted with her. The public's reactions were not uniform. While some felt that Brittanee's parents wasted too much time blaming an innocent guy, others thought Peter should have expressed more regret and offered more assistance. Nothing fresh came to light for years. Brittanee seems to have just disappeared from the face of the planet. It broke the family because no one knew if she was alive or dead. Her parents used the media to publicize their story in an attempt to warn other parents and in the hopes that their daughter would come across them. They thought Timothy Taylor, who was detained in 2010 for trying to abduct a 20-year-old woman, would have some connection to Brittanee. However, because the instances were unrelated, the charges were withdrawn 5 months later. Raymond Moody had moved out of the flat where investigators were searching in August 2011. Eventually, Moody was the police's main person of interest, but there was insufficient evidence to warrant an arrest. Eventually, Dawn relocated to Myrtle Beach in order to keep an eye on the inquiry and be nearer to Brittanee's last known location. In an attempt to locate her daughter, Dawn claimed that Dawn had been contacting Brittanee's friends nonstop in Myrtle Beach, but they did not seem to be concerned enough to offer assistance. 5 years after her daughter vanished, Dawn stated in a newspaper article in 2014 that she thought her daughter had been offered a job as a model. The officials denied her suspicions that there had been any trafficking in her daughter, saying there was very little to none at all. However, Horry County, which is only 25 miles north of Myrtle Beach, is the South Carolina county with the highest number of reports of human trafficking. America's Most Wanted, People magazine, the investigation Discovery series, Disappeared, and other media outlets have all covered Brittanee's story throughout the years. Technology breakthroughs increased access to mobile phone data, yet the mystery surrounding Brittanee Drexel remained unsolved. Not far from where she was last seen, human remains were discovered, but it came out that the body found was male. The public did not start to acknowledge Brittanee's murder until 2016, which was 7 years after the disappearance. Until August of 2016, no fresh noteworthy developments have occurred. The FBI had offered a $25,000 reward 2 months earlier for information that could help solve the case. A report from a bond hearing for Timothy Taylor, the same man who was charged with attempting to abduct a 20-year-old woman in 2010, was received. An unrelated robbery accusation was the reason he was in jail. Another prisoner in South Carolina, serving a 25-year sentence for manslaughter, Haquan Brown, informed FBI agent Garrick Munoz that in 2009, he had visited the McClelville stash house to give money to Taylor's father. He stated that he witnessed Taylor abusing Brittanee sexually while inside the house along with other witnesses. While they were speaking, Brown located Taylor's father, handed him the money, and witnessed Brittanee flee the house before Taylor caught her again, and there were gunshots. Later, he says, he witnessed the removal of a wrapped body from the residence and its subsequent disposal in an alligator pond. In order to show off to friends and sell Brittanee for human trafficking, Taylor picked her up at Myrtle Beach and brought her to McClellanville, according to another prisoner in Georgetown County Jail. Because of the focus of the media, Taylor made the decision to kill Brittanee in order to get out of jail. Taylor's attorney felt that the untrustworthy witnesses cast doubt on the new accusation. There were concerns about double jeopardy, yet there were legal restrictions on filing these dubious allegations, and many people were in urgent need of clarification. Taylor insisted on his innocence, saying the prisoner was merely attempting to obtain the prize money. Taylor completed a polygraph exam in June 2017 as part of a plea agreement. The FBI flagged several of his responses as misleading. Taylor said that she had heard some of the fight regarding Brittanee's phone, but she did not elaborate. When asked if he had seen Brittanee since she vanished, or if he was involved, the examiner found that his responses were not truthful. Taylor could no longer contain her rage. The Supreme Court upheld the government's claim to dual sovereignty later in 2019. Brown participated in a phone interview with TV in February 2019. He was a prisoner at South Carolina's McCormick Correctional Institution at the time. His tale started to seem even more unbelievable. Following her disappearance, he claimed to have seen Brittanee 4 times. He claimed that on April 25, 2009, 2 days after her abduction, he saw her in McClellanville. At the time, she was being sexually attacked by 8 to 12 young men, and Brown had not recognized her until he had seen her on television. A few days later, he spotted her once more and witnessed a body being wrapped in a rug while hearing gunfire from within the building. It had been Brittanee, he thought. He last saw Brittanee in May on his cousin's farm, and he saw her again 5 days later on a gravel road close to his cousin's Jacksonville residence. Once more, Brown stated that he saw a man by the name of Nate kill Brittanee twice with a double-barreled shotgun. Brown and his buddies then allegedly fled out of concern that they would turn into collaborators. Although he described McClellanville accurately and the initial part of his story remained true, he was unable to locate the friends and relatives he named to corroborate his account. Because they revealed his identity to the public, Brown eventually filed a lawsuit against FBI agent Munaz, federal prosecutor Winston Holliday, and other officials. He was considered a snitch, which made his life vulnerable. They were already assaulting him, he said, and Taylor had placed a $15,000 price on his head. When a man came forward and turned himself in 3 years later, in May 2022, we found out that the most of Brown's story had been fiction. The man she knew approached through the door and mentioned that it smelled delicious like pot. She responded, "Okay, let me in," and quickly moved behind. However, there appeared to be an issue. 62-year-old Raymond Moody was a registered sexual offender. He kidnapped and sexually assaulted a 9-year-old in 1983. His prison sentence was 21 years. On the grounds of impeding justice, he surrendered himself to the Georgetown County Sheriff's Office. Although they never had enough proof to accuse Moody of a crime, police had regarded him as a person of interest in 2012. Raymond Moody was dating Angel Vaz, his girlfriend, back in 2009. When Moody handed himself up, both Ernest Merchant and his partner, with whom he had been having an affair, spoke out against him. Moody and Ernest Merchant had a connection that began in prison and continued out of it. When Merchant discovered Moody was having an affair with a lady named Angel Vaz, the relationship finally came to an end. The last person to saw Brittanee alive was Angel Vaz. The two strangers took her on a ride to a campsite where they shared a cigarette. Following Vaz's departure, Moody acknowledged that he had killed Brittanee out of fear after sexually abusing her. "She became frightened, and I choked her." According to Merchant, Moody had claw marks on his bald head and face around the time when Brittanee vanished. When asked directly by Merchant if he had been involved in the girl's disappearance, Moody responded by saying that he would never do anything like that. He said that although Moody was never mean or harsh, his perspective shifted after being released from prison, and he started to feel as though he could do anything he wanted because he was free. A series of events led to Moody turning himself, and that might not have occurred 5 years ago, and a medical professional states that he would not be surprised if Moody was mentally ill. Merchant questioned the investigators during his interview, asking them why Moody turned himself in and if rumors of him being mentally ill were true. However, they could not reveal much during an open investigation. After learning of Moody's confession, Angel Vaz claimed that he had been using her for years. She became suspicious that Brittanee was not the only woman he had told about his wild dreams, which included other girls and were completely improper. Vaz revealed that Moody had always stated teenager, but now that he is getting older, it appears that there is a growing suspicion that he wants to kidnap them and have somewhere to put them. He claimed he wanted to establish a home in the woods, since, in his words, the kids were simply like toys in his toy box. When Vaz asked Moody why she had stayed with him after he had killed Brittanee, he told her that he would kill her if she reported the crime. He then wrapped Vaz in a blanket, buried her in the woods, and said that Moody's friends had picked up the teen. When investigators asked Moody what he did with Brittanee's belongings, Moody claimed to have cut up her ID, dropped her purse in a Salvation Army donation box, and thrown her phone into a river. 12 miles from the spot where Moody killed Brittanee by strangulation, Moody, led investigators to a private piece of land on Pickerel Road in Georgetown, where he buried her next to a dirt road. It took the investigators approximately 11 days to find Brittanee's remains. They were clearing trees and excavating the dirt when they discovered human bones. They worked for the next 18 hours to recover all the remains. After all these years, there was essentially only a skeleton left of Brittanee. She still had hair and a silver nose piercing, but no clothing. For less than 2 days, officials were able to confirm Brittanee's identity through dental records and DNA. Moody was charged with murder, illegal sexual conduct, and kidnapping after the remains supported his account. In other words, it was a monster, and Laura Buffy has felt incredibly sad for all of you ever since that day. While Moody expressed regret for the terrible things he had done to Brittanee, her parents, Dawn in particular, did not offer him any consolation. They had been looking for their daughter for the last 13 years and had no mercy for the man who had stolen her. In October 2020, Moody entered a guilty plea to all charges of criminal sexual assault, kidnapping, and murder. He was found guilty and given 2 consecutive 30-year sentences. In January 2023, Dawn filed a lawsuit against her daughter's killer, accusing him of intentionally causing her emotional distress and outrage. Brittanee's parents were present and asked the judge to impose the harshest sentence possible on Moody. In that case, Moody will spend the rest of his prison term living with the guilt and the awareness of what he did and how much he has hated it. Dawn spent 13 years of her life doing everything to find her daughter, and until Moody came forward, they went through an agonizing ordeal. The lawsuit claims that killing a child is such extreme and outrageous behavior that it goes beyond all bounds of decency, and that there is probably no greater sense of loss than that of a parent who has lost a child. It also claims that Moody knew the consequences of his actions and could have come forward sooner. Dawn asserts that as of April 3, 2023, she is eligible for compensation, which covers expenses such as medical bills, the loss of the ability to enjoy life, pain and suffering, and mental distress. Since Moody has not responded to the lawsuit, it is clear that he is not contesting any of the claims made against him in the wrongful death lawsuit. The amount of money Dawn is owed will be determined at a later date. A few poor choices made by a young girl led to her meeting the wrong man, and as a result, many others suffered. Brittanee had a long and wonderful life ahead of her. She was extroverted, an athlete, and full of dreams. Please remember to subscribe to the channel if you like this video, as it helps to make more like it possible. Thanks for watching.